Welcome to JC NERR and How We Got Here, the show where you get an inside look into the stories and experiences that brought each of our staff here to the reserve. Okay, so I want to take a moment to give a special thank you to our guest today, Norb Psuty. Pronounce that correctly. This is quite a wonderful opportunity to speak with you since your position with us is a very unique one, unlike anybody else that we have on our staff. So this is going to be a very, very cool experience and opportunity. So Norb is a Professor Emeritus with Rutgers University. Then he's also a leader in the Sandy Hook Cooperative Research programs. So he'll actually get into more about that later and kind of what that means in relationship to us here at the reserve. So I'm going to start at the very, very top. So when did you know that you wanted to pursue science? Was it something that happened when you were a little kid or maybe later on in your life?
I always had an interest in how things work, how systems sort of function. My dad, my mom really caused me to learn as much as I can. My dad taught me math.
Okay.
He was not a university, not even a high school graduate, but he was such a skilled mathematician that he actually taught math to workers during the Second World War in the various plants that were making armaments and stuff in the Detroit arsenal.
Wow, so he didn't have any background or anything in it. He just had that, like he
had the skill, he had the knowledge, and I was his practice. And so he taught me and practiced on me. So by I got into the first grade, I could do long division. And I just loved math. Math to me was solving problems. Mm-hmm. And so it was a skill that I use in everything. In trying to understand science and trying to understand how things function, because it was solving an equation. And I have to thank my dad for basically instilling in me the interest in being able to sort of, let's see if we can describe this situation in some kind of terms, whether it's math terms, and eventually became science terms. Then we had, I grew up in Detroit, but we had a cottage on a lake, so I became interested in the lake, the boundary of the lake, in the water, everything about the lake. And then being in Michigan, in the Great Lakes, I began to see lakes of different sizes and different things. And I really became interested in that interaction of water and land. And you think for a moment, that's a mathematical equation. And I became interested in that. And I eventually went to school. I went to Wayne State University, which is an urban university within Detroit. And it had a pretty good geology department, geography department, good math department. I started in math, of course.
Okay, yeah.
And then because of my interest, I sort of moved over to physical geography and geology. And eventually I had like double majors in geography, geology, minors in, minors in math and in English.
English, where did that come from?
My very first class in English at Wayne, it was a professor who actually was interested in novels, and he conveyed that. And so I kept following him and the kind of interest. And so I basically went through a series of just general English classes, and then went into this kind of novel or this kind of writing style or this. And so I eventually got a minor in English as well. And that actually did me well in the in subsequent years, because I became interested in how does one express oneself, and what's the history, and then something about how called writing, and then eventually when I became a scientist, I became interested in writing and putting articles out. and getting publications. And so it kind of built one thing after another. I went to Miami of Ohio for my master's degree, and that was kind of interesting. It was a nice elite school, but it didn't have the kind of, I'll call it, outdoor flavor that I really liked. And so I talked to the faculty there, my mentors, and okay, I want to do something different. Coast interests me still. And so they did a great job. They basically searched with me and found, here are a couple schools for you. Scripps at La Jolla, University of Chicago, Louisiana State University. These are three schools that are doing a lot of work with coastal environmental things. And I applied to all three. La Jolla basically said, "Are you going to have to do all this chemistry?" And I said, "Well, I'm not really interested in chemistry."
Okay.
Chicago basically said, "Okay, there's a possibility." LSU offered me an assistantship to come there, and it was interesting. They had a combination of Coastal Studies Institute, which was geography, geology, and botany. And you took the same classes, but you got credit in either geography, geology, or botany. And we're studying coasts, and you will study coasts. So I went there. I went to LSU. I remember very vividly walking on campus and saying, I'd like to meet Professor X. It was Professor Russell. Russell, he's dean of the graduate school, and why don't you go over there and introduce yourself? Okay.
It's a little intimidating.
Yeah, exactly. So I went, the secretary brought me into his office, introduced me, and he said something like, I'll paraphrase, "Norb, glad to see you. Hey, we're starting we have a research group going out tomorrow into the marsh to collect some data. Do you want to go?" That was my first day.
Yeah.
Second day, I was in the field collecting data. Didn't stop the entire time I was there. I got into the Coastal Studies Institute. I basically was in the field, in the lab, doing analysis, doing something in this tremendous environment. Just coastal Louisiana, everything about it, all new to me, and it's just an opportunity. We are Coastal Studies Institute. We're funded by the Office of Naval Research. They have two projects they want to get started. One is in Alaska, one is in Mexico. Would you be interested in either one of those? Yeah, Mexico. Okay, you're going to Mexico.
Wow.
And so I was just lucky. I was in the right place at the right time, and doors opened, and they just gave me opportunities. And it was just amazing. It hasn't stopped.
Well, it's wonderful also that you got to experience different types of coastlines in different areas of the country. So starting when you're growing up the Great Lakes. I know I actually have been to Lake Michigan myself, and I didn't imagine that it looks like an ocean.
That's right.
It's the sheer vastness of it blows your mind when you first see it, because you never think. You're like, it's a lake, it can't be that big, but it really does look like an ocean. To go from there to Louisiana to Mexico, it's such a diverse range of what you've experienced. Now, in each area, actually, I should start with this. Have you ever went back to Lake Michigan and did any kind of research there? Has it come full circle for you yet?
Well, I've certainly been back. I haven't done research in Michigan. I've done research in Louisiana. I've done research in Mexico, obviously. Research in New Jersey. I have been a visiting professor. I've done research in China. in Spain, in Argentina, in Peru, in Portugal, in Northern Ireland, in the UK. I'm trying to think where else.
A little bit of everywhere.
I've been in a lot of places. Yeah, I've been in every continent except Antarctica, and been just tremendous opportunities.
Where has been your favorite location to research? The most intriguing to you, or the one you enjoyed the most, like in terms of an area?
Well, first of all, obviously New Jersey, because I've been doing this, but probably Portugal.
Okay.
I've had a variety of things. We've done coring and basically got evidence on rates of sea level change and sea level rise and accumulations, and interestingly associated with early habitation. And so at times we were finding things that were dating for about the year zero, and then finding, for example, the equivalent of Iron Age materials, evidence of some of the Moors and their travels, evidence of in one case Romans that were in the site left artifacts that we get in our cores. Yeah. So as we're dating it, we're dating some of the stuff with carbon dating, but we're also seeing these relics that are associated with these ages through the cores, and that was fantastic. Still is fantastic.
Yeah. Well, it's really cool because it actually also ties into your other interests in English and history and that kind of a side of your brain. So you're able. So that's actually incredible that you not only have the interest in kind of both sides, but you actually got to experience that, and that's something that I've never personally heard someone's story of them being able to experience something like that.
And it is amazing, and certainly I think I've just been fortunate, having in circumstances that sort of allow you to have this experience. It's going to be kind of hard to sort of go out and say, I want to have this.
Right.
But you are there, something is occurring, and you can participate in it. Mm-hmm. And therefore, this part of your background, part of all the experience that you're putting together, and then you can then transfer and use other places. So in fact, we've done coring in this region, in Great Bay. And I don't find the old artifacts. However, I have found old Indian relics in some of the cores, saying that there's evidence of people being here at an earlier time, and they've left this mark in the sediments. Right, and that was on the south side of Great Bay. You find some Indian mounds in the marsh. And
ones that you typically wouldn't see unless you're really out there in the marsh and surveying that land. Otherwise, right. You would overlook it.
And you basically say, "Oh, this is a little different. What is this? What is this vegetation doing here when everything else is just marsh grass? Oh, it's the top of a mound. Oh, this is actually an anthropogenic feature that somebody has piled material here."
Yeah.
And then, oh look, there's some shards here. There's stuff here that indicate that the humans have done this.
Yeah.
So I've had that experience here just in Great Bay.
And it's incredible that especially because this for everybody who's listening, like you're probably from a very wide range of backgrounds, wide range of ages. You might be you're into your senior year of high school and you're trying to figure out what you're going to do. And I think you're such a great example of just when an opportunity presents itself, don't be scared, just do it.
Take it. Right.
Just take it, because you never know because imagine if you had maybe said no to one of those opportunities, it might not have led to everything that you got to experience and everything that you got to do to build into the repertoire and the skills that you have today. And it's incredible that really to have someone that is such a go-getter.
That's a good observation. And this I have to thank my mother. Because my mother always told me, always try something new. something different. And it was my favorite story. My mother would send me to the market to go get some things for the house, and she would say, "And buy something different. Come back with something we haven't had before."
Yeah.
And so every time there was a challenge. What is there in this market that I could get that's different, and that I wonder about this. What is this thing? Let's buy it, take it home, and see what it is. And I've always done that. Almost every time I've been going to some place, I have to do something a little bit different.
Yeah.
A little bit new. Something that, and occasionally, I remember one time in a place in Louisiana, I bought something. It was a food store, and I bought a piece of, I'll call it flesh, and I brought it home. I said, "What the hell is this?" I went to some of the neighbors. They didn't know what it was. Finally, I went back to the market.
Right.
I said, "Oh, that's fish bait."
Well, I mean, hey, might not be good eating, but I mean, you've got some bait next time you go out fishing.
No, that's good.
But then you have so many, it winds up, you have such a breadth of experiences and stories, and then it just winds up, you get so well-rounded. I know sometimes when, you think that you only have, one certain path. And I know a lot of times, certain situations, I know Ida did not have a background in science, but she's with us today. So it just, you never know unless when you see the opportunity present itself, might be something different, might be something that terrifies you, but just do it. If it doesn't work, then hey, you learn from it. But
exactly.
And that's incredible. And especially because you grew up with that. So you had a home that was encouraging in trying new things. And then your dad with as much and math, and I can actually come from this. My grandfather was a big math teacher, so he was always making sure we knew our stuff, and that's just incredible that you had that opportunity, and not only that you just had it, but you took it and you ran with it.
You used it, yeah.
Yeah, and you really used it. And so with all of that, when you came, what made you put your roots down here? What was it about New Jersey? Was it another opportunity you received, or maybe the area, or what brought you to Jersey?
Very good question. I was very happy in my variety of professional positions. I started out, my first professional job at the university was at the University of Miami. And a good location, and interested in the coast. And was giving presentations at professional meetings. My first publications were coming out. And the University of Wisconsin, which is a very highly regarded institution. Members there at a professional meeting met me and basically said, we'd be interested in having you come and give us some lectures. So I was invited there. They then essentially offered me a position. I thought about it, not too long. Thought about it and said, okay. It's a great institution. The position was a promotion, and I took that. So I was there and continued my science and publications and research. Got funded, National Science Foundation got funded by NASA, doing work again on the coast, and got an invitation for consideration to come to Rutgers. And I said, oh, that's interesting, but no thank you. I'm happy.
Wow, one of the first times you probably said no, or you declined something.
Because there were things that were happening at Wisconsin. And we were starting the Sea Grant operation. And I was part of that inner circle. And so basically, I was there when we created the Sea Grant program at Rutgers, and I had a position within the Sea Grant. And then got another offer from Rutgers, and this time was a fellow who had been a graduate from Wisconsin, and he said something like, "You've done such a good job with the Sea Grant there. Why don't you come to Rutgers? We don't have a Sea Grant in New Jersey." And okay, let's go. I came to Rutgers. They're intelligent people. The first thing he did is said, "We're going down to the coast," and they took me to Sandy Hook.
Okay.
And I'm looking at Sandy Hook, and they said, "Look at this as a research area. Look at this as a place to do work. Well, and look at this where you can search." And I said, "You're right." And I said, "Okay, I think there is an opportunity."
Right.
And eventually I came to Rutgers. I was the first director of the Marine Sciences Center at Rutgers University because I helped create it. I helped develop a few other things, and it was the marine program was latent, but there were just all sorts of people who were interested in it, but no one was bringing it together. Okay. So I remember going to the provost's office and knocking on the door of the provost and basically, we need to do this. We need to do this. And he more or less said, "Okay, what do you think we have to do?" I said, "Well, we need to hire somebody in charge. We need a so-and-so." And he said something like, "Well, go find somebody for me." Okay. So I brought in a number of applicants, know that, and they didn't kind of work out for whatever reason. And then I said, "I have one more." He said, "No, you."
Oh.
You. Okay. So we created the Marine Sciences Center, got all sorts of people involved, and eventually got the marine facility, a marine lab going. And I've always been interested in Great Bay. I did coring, beach work, looking at coastal changes, sea level rise impacts, all that stuff, largely in this general environment. And so it was something that just constantly fascinated me, because we are basically looking at the history of evolution of this area, and then you could track this migration of the water's edge. You could track the development of the peats, track the development of storms that are recorded in all these sediment layers that are there, and it's just fascinating.
And it's incredible that you started it all. Like, you can say that, like, you were that catalyst that provost needed. You were that catalyst to make all of this happen. Now so fast forward a bunch of years to the present. So as developing this program and over the years as it's grown, what is it now? So, like, what is the kind of work you are doing for us, like, with us now?
Okay. Part of it has to do with the I'll call it the general evolution of our coastal zone. It's changing because of sea level rise, because of sediment supplies and sediment deficits and stuff like that. The whole area is undergoing a kind of evolution, displacement, kind of modifications that are being driven by a combination of both natural and art and cultural things, anthropogenic. I see that. And then as a scientist, one of the things that happened, around about in 1997, 98, somewhere in there, one of my former PhD students was with the National Park Service, and they were developing something called vital signs analysis. They wanted to see what are these vital signs that are occurring in the parks, and this specifically coastal parks. And they went through and they basically said, here are all the things that are changing. What are some of the things that we could learn the most from? Oh, shorelines, how shorelines are changing. Oh, coastal features, how coastal features are changing. Let's develop a program to monitor these changes, and then let's feed this into the management. My student said, I know somebody who could do a great job on this, and he nominated me, and I became the person, a scientist, working with the National Park Service, developing monitoring programs. And so I wrote and developed the protocols for tracking coastal change, coastal shoreline change, and then basically providing this information to managers and saying, see, this is what's happening, and see, you have to do something that accommodates this. Your program, your whatever you're doing in your community, in your park, should allow for this kind of evolution. It is kind of ecological evolution, and you shouldn't obstruct it. You should actually encourage it, assimilate it, let it happen. And for the scientists, that was fantastic. We can take our science and have it have it applied to allowing the system to continue to function, to be resilient, right?
Yeah.
And my goodness, and the managers were interested in getting this information. And so once I retired, I said, now I have a full-time job. I am now collecting this change, information on this change, and metrics, and communicating it to managers at all different levels. And I did this for the National Park Service. I made a presentation at a meeting one time. Somebody came up and said, oh, I'm with the Fish and Wildlife Service. We would like to have you do something like this for our refuges, the coastal refuges.
Okay.
And so I'm now doing it for the coastal refuges in the total northeast part of the United States. Wow. All the parks in the coastal northeast United States, the southern part of the southern region of the National Park Service, and the Gulf Coast region of the National Park Service all follow the same procedures that I have developed and use originally here in New Jersey, and now expanded to 17 different places up and down the coast. It's satisfying for a scientist to be able to say, it's not just being used by other scientists. It's being used to manage and encourage the use of our natural resources
in a sustainable and smart way, not just to wipe them out.
That's right.
And also, can you imagine if you didn't have the English and writing background that you had? Can you imagine how that would have been altered? Or because you have written so many of these programs and they're integral because they're being used so many places throughout the country. That's just it all winds up coming together. Everything it does happen for a reason, that you had this background, you had this interest, and then it applies in such a monumental way. Because especially with talking with these stakeholders, that's where you can really have that change. You can really be a participant in that process, not just providing it, but working with them to have them understand it. Like you said, communicating it with them.
I mean, that's the most important thing, the ability to communicate. You can be a scientist and have difficulty communicating. Again, to be able to how do I call this? I have to say this nicely. Be able to express yourself in common terms, all right, so that everybody can appreciate what you're doing and appreciate the importance of what you're doing. Because
if they don't have that connection, that personal connection, it's not going to mean anything. That's really. Right. And I think that's something so important now. And actually, this is my personal first experience in a communications type position. And now I realize how integral and how important it is, and making it something that is looking at this crazy data that can have something that nobody would be able to understand unless you're really in it. But then being able to take that, making it palatable for everybody to understand so they see the connection. It's not just spewing a bunch of terms at you. It's actually making it so that you understand the impact, you understand the importance, and also the connection. So it's not making this science and this research something that's separate, but but it really is integrated in this whole big system that we are a part of. Right. And that is just such to be able to like look, I can't even imagine for you to be able to look back and say like, this is what I created. This is this is the legacy that I have started. And you really have started it. You didn't just come along halfway. You really you started it. You built that foundation.
But not by myself. There's so many others, and the opportunity to interact with people really who have similar skills, similar interests, and be able to come together and do this as a team, because it needs a team to be able to do this, and it's nice to be part of a team this way.
Yeah. Now through that, where do you see this program going as the years go on, or is there like a goal you're shooting for what you would like this program to develop into, or how it's used?
I think about this once in a while, and I say I'd like to see this essentially being able to communicate to everybody who's in this environmental system to understand that we can't stop the evolution. We can't keep this in today's condition. The natural system is evolving. The natural system is undergoing this very nice kind of a modification, because that's what's happening. Mm-hmm. That's what's happening at the world level, the global level, not just here in New Jersey. And to work with this and to fit within this global vectors of change, and to appreciate that. I think that's where I see JC NERR and other programs like this communicating to others, saying, let's appreciate the system. Let's fit within this system, mm-hmm. and not put up barriers, but let's allow it to migrate. Let's allow it to evolve. Let's allow it to continue to function as best it can. And that's, to me right now, that's my flag. To basically, let's maintain the general evolution and resilience of our system. And the more we can do that, the happier I am. And I think the happier we'll all be, mm-hmm. because then we're allowing the system to maintain itself, to continue, and not be vanishing from our view.
And I think that's such a good point that you bring up, that to not fight it, to go along with it, because I know there are a lot of literally just built-in programs within nature itself, that it has a way of fixing itself. But then there's the change, to go along with the change, and to not put up these barriers, not to try to fight it, because if you fight it, it's going to have it's only going to be negative if you fight it. And I think that's a very good way to put it, is to go along with it. There are changes that are happening, whether it be good or bad in the way that you see it. But being able to flow with it and just be in harmony with it and work with it, instead of trying to work against it or fighting against it. Because that's not going to do anything but create more problems.
And especially at the coast. Mm-hmm. Because the coast is basically this boundary between the aquatic environment and the terrestrial environment, and to know that boundary is naturally changing, mm-hmm.
and not static,
and now to be able to fit within that change. And I think the estuary system, probably the most dynamic, because the estuary system incorporates not only the interaction of the waves and the currents and sediments, but also incorporates this migration of the wetland onto mm-hmm. the drier land, onto the rest of the terrestrial. So there's this huge variety of situations and conditions, and to be able to sort of work with this variety, mm-hmm. that's just amazing.
Now I'm gonna end it with this. Do you have, because we'll have such a amazing, diverse audience that will be listening to these, and do you have any advice or words of wisdom from your experience for maybe someone who is even just the public in general, when they're looking at these systems and looking at how they're changing, how the ebb and the flow, do you have any advice or maybe some words as to maybe a different way to look at it? Or
oh, that's a very tough question to respond to. Again, I go back to my science, the basic knowledge that I have acquired thus far, and basically says that, okay, global climate change is part of what's occurring. I am a scientist. I realize that global climate change is causing some of the modifications at our water-land boundary. I also realize that some of this is anthropogenically determined, that we are doing things that are sort of increasing the rates of change. And I think we have an obligation as a society, as humans, to try to slow that, to try to slow our anthropogenic impact on this. And we have the capacity to do that. We have to acknowledge the fact that we are responsible for some of this change. And we have to acknowledge that there are both natural rates of change, and then there are these kind of artificial rates of change. And we do have some capacity to sort of reduce that anthropogenic thing. I think my hope is that humans will recognize our negative role in this change, and that we make positive actions to reduce our impacts and to be able to sort of, I'll call it, live more realistically within the natural system that occurs in our very important estuarine zone.
And I think that really comes down to understanding, and that communication that we keep coming back to, that aspect of communication and understanding. And I think it all comes down to being able to do that so well. And you have such a heavy hand in it with the programs that you're a part of. So we are so incredibly grateful to have you here with us, to share your story, to share your experiences, for us to learn from you and be able to take some of these programs and become involved in them. And we cannot wait to see where these programs go. And I just wanted to thank you again for being with us and sharing your story with everybody. And it was just an incredible short little period of time.
Okay, thank you, Amy.